I'm prepared for the next recession, the next depression, the next disruption, right? And I'm looking at the chess pieces on the board. I'm positioning myself, and I'm making sure that I'm in a position to win. The hyper rich, the hyper wealthy, big business people, they do not want to trust the banks. They don't want to have all their eggs in one basket. What's up, Disrupt Nation? My name's Tony Delgado, and welcome to the Disrupt Podcast. On this podcast, we're going to be talking to the top influencers, creators, movers, and shakers who are on a mission to change the world. If you're listening on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you're on iTunes or Spotify, make sure to rate the show 5 stars. It helps out the show more than you know. Now let's get into it. What's up, Disrupt Nation? My name's Tony Delgado, and welcome to the show. This is a new format for the show called Trending Topics, where we dive in on what's trending in the news, the pulse on the economy, the pulse on the world, and what are the latest disruptions happening that you need to know about. So let's dive right into it. This has been an incredible week for the world of business, been an incredible week for the economy. There's massive disruptions happening. And if you're paying attention, it's pretty scary. We've seen global economic collaboration with some of our enemies, and we've seen massive disruption in the financial industry. So we're going to deep dive into things that we've never really seen before in politics in the United States, things that you really only see in communist, totalitarian types of regimes we're now seeing here in the US. So we're going to dive into just the news, the trending topics, and give you a little bit of an analysis of where we see these things going. So first and foremost, Trump got arrested. Last week, there was some speculation. Trump put out a press release saying he might get arrested, or he thought he was going to get arrested or something, and people were thinking that it wasn't going to happen. But today, he was arrested, and he faced over 30 charges for a case that, according to political and legal analysts, it's a case that is so old that it's outside the jurisdiction of the courts. So even though it's past the statute of limitation, they're technically not supposed to be able to even bring this to trial. That didn't stop them from pursuing this case. Now, it created a very interesting precedent because we've never had a U.S. president be charged with anything. And now, that's not to say that we've never had a U.S. president break the law. We've had tons of politicians, presidents, senators, etc., who have broken the law before. But it's unprecedented for a U.S. president to actually have to go to trial and actually face any sort of charges. And it's interesting because you think of the presidents as former presidents, but that's not really how this country works. Once someone's a president, they're a president for life. So Donald Trump, Obama, Bill Clinton, George Bush, for the rest of their lives, they are essentially property of the United States, and the Secret Service has to follow them and is assigned to detail and protect them anywhere that they go. So there was a huge power struggle between the state of New York, who wanted to bring these charges, and the Secret Service and the federal government, who their job is to protect the former president, every single former president of the United States at all costs. They're not able to do what they do to normal citizens like you and me and just throw them in the back of the cop car and handcuff them and throw them in a bullpen with a bunch of other criminals, right? They're not able to do that to him because he is under the jurisdiction of the federal government, of the Secret Service, and his life needs to be protected. It would be a huge security risk for the nation if our former presidents could be killed or be harmed or be taken prisoner, be taken captive, right? Be taken hostage, right? What if the guys in the jail just go and they take Trump hostage and they say, hey, we're going to kill Trump if you don't let everybody free? There's all these sorts of things that could happen. So every single president then needs to be protected for the rest of their lives, right? When these charges first came up, there was a huge power struggle between the federal government and the state government. And they finally decided this week that Trump was going to come in voluntarily, come in with Secret Service and his lawyers and everyone, and answer the charges. Additionally, the governor of Florida stated that he was not going to extradite Trump, right? These charges are in New York. Trump lives in Florida. They're like, listen, we're not sending our guys to come pick him up. So either he's going to go over there of his free will, or you guys are going to have to come get him, right? So he went, he pled not guilty to the charges, and now in the United States, you're innocent until proven guilty. So they're going to go through that whole entire process. But I don't really want to focus on the drama of that case, because that case involves a porn star, and it's really like a tabloid case. Really want to focus on the comments that Trump made after pleading innocent and after leaving New York. He went on to do a rally and live stream it, and during that press conference, he said some really powerful things. He talked about how the US dollar is under attack and how it will not be the most prominent dollar in the world, the most prominent currency. And if you grew up in the United States, you take it for granted that we have a strong economic power around the world, right? If you've ever traveled outside of the United States as a US citizen, you know that your dollar is strong. You know that you can go to other countries and travel and buy property and stay in hotels and eat, and your dollar is really strong. It's powerful. But people in other parts of the world, they experience the exact opposite when traveling internationally and doing business internationally. Their currency is usually much weaker than the dollar and then the other dominant currencies like the euro, right? But we've been seeing this change, right? We've been seeing this shift as the pandemic created this situation where the federal government was printing and printing unprecedented amounts of money printing. We saw the value being devalued, the US dollar being devalued at rates that we've never seen in history. Time out. If you've been getting value out of this episode and you want more episodes like this, I want you to smash the like button, hit subscribe, and then hit the bell so that you get post notifications every single time we drop more of this exclusive content. If you're an entrepreneur that wants to take their game to the next level, then this show is absolutely for you. And the best part, it's completely free. The US dollar being devalued at rates that we've never seen in history. And now this week, leading up to the Trump arrest, and a lot of people are saying that it's politically motivated. A lot of people are saying it's just because he's running for president again. And so they're using this as like a political tool or a political tactic. The Stormy Daniels case was already tried back in 2016, 17, 18. They went through this whole case. Trump actually won in court. Stormy Daniels had to pay him restitution for legal fees, right? So they're taking this old case that was already tried, and for political reasons, is what it seems, they're retrying it to make a statement that they are in control, that they're in power, and that they are going to stop this man from running for president a second time. But the thing that happened simultaneously is we've now seen the war in Ukraine and our Cold War with Russia heat right back up. And Russia has now partnered with China, and now Russia and China have now partnered with India, South Africa, and Brazil to create and announce their own digital currency to challenge the dollar. And now simultaneously this week, in one short week, we saw Saudi Arabia and India and a number of other countries, Russia, all accepting the Chinese yen, right? Accepting the Chinese dollar, the Chinese currency, instead of the US dollar for trade with oil and gold and goods and other services. And again, this is really unprecedented. The US dollar for the last 50 years has been backed up by oil, right? Before it was backed up by gold. Then in the 70s, Nixon took us off the gold standard. And then after that, the dollar was basically backed up by war, greed, violence, and then oil. And it was international policy that every single transaction of oil had to take place in dollars. So it didn't matter if you were the president of Russia or the president of Brazil, right? If you wanted to buy oil, you needed to have dollars on your balance sheet. You need to have dollars in your bank account. So and they call this the petrodollar, right? If you've watched any of my other master classes, we talk about Nixon, we go deep on all these things, right? And that's the importance of crypto, which we're going to get into. But the US dollar was used as the standard, as the quote unquote gold standard for trading oil around the world. And that made it the number one currency. It made it the most powerful currency because if you wanted to trade oil, and every country needs oil, you had to have US dollars. Right? And it became, and still is, the global reserve currency, right? So every single country kept their reserves, their backup money, in US dollars, and they still do to this point. The majority of their backup is being kept in dollars. But as there's all this money printing and there's all this intervention and there's all these wars and all these political things that have been happening over the last few decades, other countries have not always agreed with all these wars. Other countries have not always agreed with the monetary and political and economic of the US, but they were stuck. They were trapped in this headlock. And then some countries in the last few decades have tried to get out off the gold standard. And then every single time that they try to, the dollar standard, the petrodollar standard, every time they try to pull back and stop using the US dollar for oil, they make an announcement, they say, hey, we're gonna take gold, we're gonna take other currencies, right? We're open. Every single time that a country has done that in the last few decades, they have subsequently been invaded. They have subsequently been deplatformed, they have subsequently been executed, they have subsequently had some sort of a political, economic, or war that has removed that leader that had those ambitions. They have sanctions put on them. The US uses all the things that it has in its power to stop those countries from stopping using the petrodollar, right? Stopping using any other currency besides the US to trade in oil. But what happened this week is something unprecedented, something we've never seen happen before. In 1 week, not one country, not two countries, multiple countries are announcing that they are not only going to accept dollars. Now, does that mean tomorrow the dollar is going to collapse in one day? No, but the writing is really on the wall that they are announcing that they will also accept other currencies. And it puts the U.S. in a tricky situation. We have a guy who's mentally ill and has Alzheimer's in the White House, so I don't know if he would be doing anything anyway, but it puts the U.S. in a really tricky situation because you can't invade every single country at once. Like when it was one country, when it was just Iraq, or it was just Afghanistan, or if it was just Iran, or if it was just Russia, then yeah, you can put sanctions on Russia, you can put sanctions on one country. But when multiple countries, it's some of the most powerful countries in the world that are outside of NATO, are announcing simultaneously within the same week that they're all going to stop using the dollar, or they're going to not stop using the dollar, but stop using it exclusively, which sets a huge precedent. You can't invade every single country at once. You can't, even the US, as powerful as it is, you can't invade and go to war with and put sanctions on every single country in the whole world at once. So it is creating this perfect storm where the dollar is going to get dethroned as the world currency. And simultaneously, the US announced this past month that they're going to be introducing a digital dollar. So they're digitalizing their dollar so that they can control it. And they're even saying that they're going to create like a digital dollar where the money could expire, right? So for example, imagine if your COVID relief money, right? They give everybody COVID relief money, and then they put a time frame and you have to spend the money. They give you 30 days to spend it, or they give you 60 days to spend it. And then if you don't use the money, can expire. They can also put capital controls, right? So they can say, hey, you can't move the money out of the country. You can only use the money to buy food. You can only use the money to buy eggs. You can only buy 1 dozen of eggs per week or per month, right? There's all these capital controls that they can do once they have this smart money, these smart contracts. And it's diabolical because the thing that we thought was going to give us financial liberation, cryptocurrency and blockchain, they are now using and weaponizing to create their own crypto digital currency that's going to have all these rules and all these regulations. And they're already doing this. In China, there's social credit scores, right? So based on what the government thinks, if you're a good boy or a bad boy, they're putting limitations on how much food people can buy, where they can live, how much money they can spend, where they can travel, who they can do business with. So we've already seen this happening in China. We're now starting to see some of these same policies seep into countries in Europe like France, seep into Australia, seep into Canada, and now seep into the United States, where there is a shift happening from the pro-freedom, pro-democracy, pro-free thinking and free moving kind of way of the internet. The internet really started out as an advent of innovation, of an advent of freedom and freedom of information, to now a complete totalitarian, a complete surveillance state where every single thing that you do can now be used against you. And we're seeing this in China. We're seeing this even in the United States, where we're in a surveillance state where everywhere that you go, everywhere that you walk, there are cameras everywhere. And now there's new camera technology where they're able to do facial recognition. They're able to see where people are traveling, right? And it's creating this amount of government control that was just technologically impossible, right? Even if governments wanted to do this, right? Even the kings and queens and the dictators of hundreds of years ago, who were probably way worse and way more ruthless than the leaders of today, even if they wanted to have this level of control, this level of censor, they didn't have the tools to actually do it, right? If you were having a private conversation, there was no way for you to know what people are essentially thinking. But now with the advent of the internet, these tools have now been weaponized and are being used against us. And one of the big ones that is now on the horizon is now money. Money has been weaponized, right? Money used to be backed by something, right? If you had $1, it used to be backed by gold or silver, and it was a way of trading, right? Instead of me giving you a huge piece of gold that was super heavy, I could give you a certificate. It was a gold certificate. You could go to the bank and you can get your gold out, right? That changed. In the 70s, that changed, and they stopped the convertibility from paper into gold, right? And they created fiat money. Fiat is just a fancy word for fake. It's fake money. All of the money in the United States is fake, and it's backed up not by gold anymore. It's backed up by war. It's backed up by oil. It's backed up by political power, military, and all of these things that are designed to keep the U.S. in a dominant position, right? But these other countries are fed up, and especially these other countries who are really big, right? India, so one of the biggest populations in the world, a lot of innovation, a lot of coders and technology and really smart people coming out of India, right? Russia, one of the biggest countries in the world. China, one of the biggest countries in the world. Brazil, one of the biggest countries in the world. Huge populations and masses of people who they're tired of being second-class citizens on the world stage. They're tired of not being considered in NATO. They're tired of having economic forces put on them. And so now they're fighting back, and they're all fighting back simultaneously, right? So even if Trump was in office, or even if Obama or Bush or whoever you want to put, I don't know how any president would be able to react to simultaneously multiple nations announcing that they're getting off of the gold standard, right? When this has happened in the past, it has happened in the past, the U.S. has stepped in and done everything in their power to prevent it. But when it's multiple countries, you can't go and bomb everybody. And a lot of these countries are nuclear armed, right? China and Russia specifically are nuclear armed countries. So like, can't go and start World War III. And additionally, I believe that the current administration, the Biden administration, I don't think that they're even bothered by this, right? I haven't seen any of them even make any statements or really anything. And part of that could be corruption, right? Part of that could be incompetency, right? I'm not here to judge which one it is, potentially a little bit of both. But what you need to think about is, how are you going to protect your family? How are you going to protect your family's assets, your family's wealth, your family's legacy? Because these changes are happening. And the good part is that you're not the masses. 99% of people that are walking down the street have no idea that these things are happening, right? But since you're listening to this broadcast, you have the information, and now you need to figure out, what are you going to do with the information? So let's go get through some of these things around monetary policy. So China and Russia are looking to challenge the petrodollar. The US dollar has been the currency of choice for oil trade since the 70s, and it's still the most dominant currency in the world. The Chinese currency has made inroads in global trade, and the yuan, which is China's dollar, accounts for only 2.7% of the market. So less than 3% of the market, but they are looking to change that. They're doing a lot of lending too. That's another huge thing that China has been doing over the last few years, and definitely accelerated since COVID, is lending to other nations to build projects, right? So they're building roads, they're building bridges, they're building high-speed railways and trains and stadiums and skyscrapers, right? And they're funding these economic development projects in places like Africa, in places like El Salvador and other places in Latin America. And that's giving them a leverage to then come in later and ask for political favors, right? So several deals have gone on in the last week that have signaled that China and Russia are moving to sideline and destroy the US dollar and its dominance. Yeah, it's been an incredible week. President Xi and President Putin, they met together in Moscow, and the Russian president not only endorsed trading with the Chinese currency, but he also encouraged other countries to join him. The president of China was quoted as saying that they're going to see change that has not been seen in 100 years, a massive disruption to the global economic market. The collapse of the petrodollar could be imminent. The dollar, which was once said to be as good as gold as the world's premier currency, is now being seriously challenged. Saudi Arabia said that it is open to the idea of trading in other currencies besides the dollar. So did India. So major countries are announcing that they are looking to use other currencies on the global stage. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa plan to introduce a new innovative digital currency. Right? So these things are happening. They're happening around the world, and you need to be prepared. So how do you prepare yourself? So one way is investing into cryptocurrency, right? And not investing into it in a get rich quick or to the moon type of a way, right? Investing into it as a hedge against these capital controls that are going to be happening around the world, but also happening right here in the US. The US said that they're committed to digitalizing the US dollar, which is going to make paper money basically extinct. There are already reports that government buildings all across the nation are no longer accepting paper money, right? They're trying to phase out paper money because they want all money to be digital. If all money is digital, then that means that they can control it. That means that they can freeze it, right? And that means that they can take away your freedoms. So the beautiful thing about Bitcoin and Ethereum and these other digital currencies is that they are not controlled by a central bank. They are not controlled by a central government. They are decentralized. They are in the cloud, and they are a hedge against this economic oppression. Some of the other ways is investing into other markets, right? We're looking at Dubai as a potentially really strong alternative market that is very promising. We're looking at real estate as a really good hedge. Again, if the dollar goes to shit, you're going to want to own some assets, some real assets, some things that are not just cash sitting in the bank. Stocks, again, are a good investment, a good hedge, right? But the world is changing, man. The world is really changing. So not only looking at the stock market, but also looking at international markets, right? How can you diversify and get your money, get some money in another economy that is not just the US? Because as these changes happen, you want to be diversified. You don't want all your money in the US stock market and all the US companies and all US real estate, right? You want to have some money set aside in some other places, right? So Dubai is great. Latin America is great. We own a bunch of real estate in Latin America, and we know that that market is extremely promising, right? But what this does is if the US dollar does crash, the US dollar crashing means that other assets are going to explode, right? So the prices of a house, a car, food, rent, all these things are going to go up, right? So when that happens, you don't want to be sitting in cash. You want to be sitting and holding these other assets that are going to appreciate, that are going to skyrocket and kind of move with the way that the world is. Okay, let's get into another headline here. The founder of Cash App was found dead this week. Bob Lee, founder of Cash App and former chief technology officer of Square, died Tuesday in San Francisco. He was 43 years old. He was found dead and stabbed in San Francisco. Really sad. There have not been any reports yet on the motivation. I do know that unfortunately San Francisco is home to a lot of mentally ill people, a lot of homeless people. I've traveled there many times for business, and it is a scary city. Every time that I go back, they have what's called tent cities out there. So in San Francisco, you'll just see rows and rows of people that are living in tents on the street. It's really surreal. It's unlike anything that I've seen in any other major city. There are people that are homeless everywhere. Usually those people will be living in certain areas. In San Francisco, it is everywhere. It is in the mall, next to the luxury stores. It is on the main streets. It is literally everywhere you go. You can't turn a corner without seeing a row of tents and people living in the street. And it's sad because a lot of these people are mentally ill. A lot of these people are addicted to drugs and have these other problems, but it also creates a very unsafe environment. So me and my wife, we have not traveled there in a number of years because of it, because every single time that we go to those cities, it's really not safe. So again, I don't think any details for the motivation have been released yet, but my hearts and prayers go out to his family. He was definitely a very disruptive force, right? Creating Cash App. Cash App is like a crypto and digital currency exchange, like the new age version of PayPal. So it's really sad to see this happen. Next up in crypto and financial news, MicroStrategies buys another 1,000 plus Bitcoin at approximately $24 million. Michael Saylor just bought the dip. And this is a good sign. I actually think that we're going to see a lot more institutional money now getting back into Bitcoin. When the world is in these economic times, when there's all this change, all this disruption, right? This is what Bitcoin was created for, right? Bitcoin was created in 2000 on the heels of the 2008 collapse of the banking system. And it was created as a hedge against that banking system, right? So Bitcoin, more than anything, is a place where hyper wealthy people are now parking their money because they want to have a safe hedge. They don't want to be relying on the banks. We saw what happened to Silicon Valley Bank this month with it crashing, right? Potentially putting hundreds of millions, billions of dollars of customer deposits at risk, right? So the hyper rich, the hyper wealthy, big business people, they do not want to trust the banks. They don't want to have all their eggs in one basket, right? Doesn't mean they don't have money in the banks, but they don't want to have all their eggs in one basket. So Bitcoin has really emerged as a hedge against this economic uncertainty that we are seeing. And I would not be surprised if we see more and more money flooding into Bitcoin, and that will create the Bitcoin price to rise because people are not going to feel safe leaving their money in the bank. They're not going to feel safe leaving their money in USD, right, in United States dollars. And I saw a comment when I shared about this on Instagram, which is really funny. They were like, yeah, good luck trusting China and all these other crazy countries with your money, right? If you think the US is bad, good luck with these guys. And I tend to agree, right? Like, I don't want to trade in their currency at all, right? I do not trust China or Russia. They do not believe in freedom of speech, even way less than the US. They do not believe in rights and freedoms, right? No, I don't want to have my money in their currency either, but I don't trust the US either. Where do people park their money? I think that Bitcoin is going to see a lot more institutional adoption because there's really nowhere else to go. There's real estate and there's crypto, there's stock markets. Like I said, there's international markets. But as far as a store of value, something that you can trade, you can transact, you can send millions of dollars in an instant, coin is it. Now, that being said, if we do see another bull run on Bitcoin and Ethereum, what happens after the bull run on Bitcoin and Ethereum? We're going to see all these other little coins popping up. We're going to see Ethereum Max 2.0. We're going to see Bitcoin Platinum, and all these fake cryptos are going to be popping up, all these copycats, right? So be really careful. Bitcoin is a really strong, proven asset. A lot of really serious people behind it. Ethereum as well. But if you're not in those two asset classes, there's a lot of money to be made in the other types of coins, but there's also a lot of risk, right? Bitcoin and Ethereum are definitely the two like stores of value, stores of wealth. And then the other coins, again, we always get into them. The other coins are profitable short-term, potentially profitable long-term, but you want to really be careful because every single time there's a bull run, every single time there's a gold rush, right? There's people that are out there taking advantage and trying to fuel off of the hype, right? The whole market will rise, right? As what we saw in the last few years since COVID, right? The whole market rose, but then a lot of coins fell. And as Bitcoin and Ethereum are rising again, you're going to see some other coins will follow its trajectory, but some probably won't. And that gets us to our last story. This is a feel-good story. I figured after all of this insanity, we can end on a cool note. Dogecoin, the price of Dogecoin spiked after Elon Musk replaced the Twitter logo with the Dogecoin dog. And when you log into Twitter, instead of the bird, you see the dog. And it's so funny. He shared a tweet from before he bought Twitter, and someone suggested that he just buy Twitter. So he was talking about, what should we do with social media? There's too much censorship. Do we need to create a new platform? Should I just create a new social platform? And then somebody commented, should you buy Twitter? And he said, yeah. And then the guy said, oh my God, and please change the bird to a Dogecoin. So he did that this week. It's still up. If you go to twitter.com on the web, it doesn't work on the app, but on the web, you go to twitter.com, you will see the Dogecoin dog. I'm not sure how long he's going to leave it, but that caused the price of Dogecoin to skyrocket. So shout out to Elon for making a bunch of Dogecoin people rich and make a little bit more money. But again, stuff like that, Dogecoin is fun. It's cool. People make money from it, but it's a meme. It's not financial advice. I don't think that you should go out and buy Dogecoin, right? But Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other trusted cryptocurrencies that have a proven track record, that have technology to back it up, that have teams to back them up, are going to thrive. And people are going to be looking, how do we get out of the dollar? How do we protect our assets? How do we get them out of the banks, a percentage of our assets out of the banks and into something that we control and that we can trust? And so for that reason, my prediction is that Bitcoin is going to continue to rally. Right now, I don't think it's broken 30,000 yet. Hit 28, pulled back a little bit. Ethereum right now is at, I think, 100 around there. Again, hit 1900, pulled back a little bit. But I definitely foresee us hitting those all-time highs and surpassing them, because people are not going to want to sit in dollars in this economic climate. People are looking for places to move their money, get their money off the grid, get their money out of the banks, and crypto is your best. Last story of the day. I almost missed this one. So this is circling back to politics. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. files paperwork to run for president as a Democrat in 2024. So essentially, he would be challenging Biden. Interestingly enough, he's been a long time skeptic of vaccines. He's been very outspoken about that. So he just filed the paperwork with the Federal Trade Commission to run for president as a Democrat. I think this will be very interesting. It will be interesting to see his commentary and his contribution to the political discussion. So I'm really excited to see him and see what he brings to the campaign trail. He's definitely an outsider. But outsiders can be good, man. Outsiders can be good. So he's been a longtime vaccine skeptic. He's been discredited, obviously, by the media and many organizations because of his skepticism against the COVID vaccine, because of his claims that vaccines may be linked to autism, right? So he's definitely very disruptive, and it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting seeing him on the Democrat side of things too. I feel like it's like having bull in the hen house. So it's going to be really cool to see him run. And that could actually create a problem for Biden and the Democrats if they don't cheat, because what happens when you have someone running on that ticket, right? He might not win, but if he takes enough Democrat votes away from Biden, it can weaken Biden's stance if he goes all the way. If he just tries to primary Biden, which I don't even know if you can do to a sitting president, if he just tries to primary Biden, then, and he doesn't end up running for president, then it wouldn't create this. But if he actually runs during the presidential election, then less votes for Biden means that Biden is not only competing with Trump, but now Biden's going to be competing with Kennedy and his own party, right? So this could be a huge disruption. Maybe that's why he's doing it. Maybe that's why he didn't file as an independent, didn't file as a Republican or anything else. He filed as a Democrat. Maybe he's trying to hurt Biden and get him out of office. Obviously he is if he's running, right? But it's going to be really interesting to see how this political cycle unfolds. It's going to be a hell of a year, 2024. So buckle your seatbelt. But again, as these things are happening, I really try hard not to choose sides, because the side that I'm choosing is the side for me and my family. I want me and my family to prosper, right? I want you and your family to prosper. So the way that you do that is you take an unbiased approach to all these political and economical things that are happening, and you figure out, how do I best prepare my family so that whatever outcome happens, my family ends up on top and I'm prepared for the next recession, the next depression, the next disruption, right? And I'm looking at the chess pieces on the board, I'm positioning myself, and I'm making sure that I'm in a position to win. So that wraps up this episode. Make sure that you hit the like button if you got value. Smash the subscribe so that you get more of this content and get notified every single time that we drop a new video. And if you have a question, drop it down in the comments and we'll do our best to answer your questions on the next show. We'll see you in the next one. Peace. Whoa. Hold up. So if you got value from this episode, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to smash the like button. And if we get to 1 million likes, I'm going to give you $1 million. No, I'm not. But just hit the like button. It's free.